everyone, it's Jill. Are you ready to make some pumpkin scones? These are so delicious, especially during the fall and the holiday season. It's your typical scone, but adding some spice and some actual pumpkin puree. It's so delicious. Makes a moist scone perfect for a snack, a breakfast treat, or even just a little mini dessert at your holiday table. So let me show you the ingredients and then let's get started. All right, let's get started. So first I have my 2 cups of all-purpose flour in a bowl, and we're going to add the dry ingredients right now. So first we're going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon and 2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice, and then 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we're going to mix that together. I like to use a whisk. It kind of gets everything mixed really fast. Now you want to cut your butter, 1 stick of butter, into cubes, you know, like a Rubik's Cube. So you want to cut them into small little pieces. Makes it so much easier to break up all those pieces. You don't want warm or softened butter. You want cold butter. All right, now we're going to take those cubes of butter and we're going to put them in here. Now you have 3 options. You can use a pastry blender, you can use a fork, or you can use your hands, okay? Make sure your hands are clean. I'm going to use a pastry blender. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to make those little butter pieces chopped into small little pieces. I remember my grandma used to say you want them to look like little sizes of peas. Okay, now that we've got that all broken up, we're gonna work on the wet ingredients. Make sure you get all that butter. And you wanna stay with this recipe. You don't wanna leave this recipe and say, oh, I'm gonna go do something else, because you wanna keep that butter cold, right? All right, let's work on our wet ingredients. First thing we're gonna do is we're going to take 1 egg and we're gonna whisk that. I'm gonna make sure the whole egg is worked in together. And while that's whisking, I'm going to slowly pour in my 1/2 cup of heavy cream. Heavy cream is really what they use to make butter, actually. It's the most purest cream from cows, and it just makes such a smooth scone. So, so good. And then while I'm still whisking, this is a 2-hander, you're going to add in 1/2 teaspoon or a teaspoon of vanilla. And while I'm still whisking that, I'm going to put in my 1/2 cup of pumpkin puree. Now, when you're at the grocery store, especially kids, if you're helping your parents buy things at the grocery store, you'll see in the where they sell the pumpkin, there's usually 2 different types of cans. There's the pure pumpkin, which has just pumpkin, and then there's the pumpkin pie mix, and people get really confused. So the pumpkin pie mix already has all the spices and all of those things. You don't want that. You want the pure pumpkin. Doesn't that look so delicious? And now we're going to mix in 1/2 cup of brown sugar. And we're gonna mix that all together. Now you wanna make sure you have a baking sheet, and it's best to line it with parchment paper so there's no burn marks on the bottom. And then preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Let's pour that in. And it's gonna make a dense batter. It's gonna make a pretty stiff batter, which will be great, because what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna divide it actually into 2 balls and make 2 rings, 2 circles, because I'm going to an event where it's kind of like what they call a high tea, and I want to make sure there's enough scones for everybody. And if you make 1 big circle, it usually makes about 8 scones, but if you make 2 circles and you cut them into wedges, then it makes small little scones. Okay, that is all mixed together. Now I'm gonna go get my pan. Okay, the dough is ready. What I'm going to do is make a little floured board. Now there's two ways to do this. The one way I'm doing it is a little bit more difficult. The easy way is just to go ahead and take spoonfuls of the dough and put them on your parchment paper and bake them like that, making sure to watch the oven to make sure about 15 minutes, and then check the oven and make sure that your scones are perfectly baked. If it needs a little bit longer, that's fine. But what I'm gonna do is I like those wedges. You know how they make the wedges that you buy in the stores? So what I'm gonna do is dump the dough onto a floured board like this, get it all in there. And then I'm going to divide the dough into 2 balls. If your hands seem a little sticky, go ahead and flour your hands as well. It just adds more flour to the dough. And then make them into little balls, like that. And then we'll start with this one first. We're gonna now make it into a big circle. Kind of what I always say is like a wheel. Just flatten it down. They will rise in the oven. So you wanna have them in a nice circle like that. Okay, now we're just going to cut them like wedges. And we just wanna cut them into small little pieces like that. And you should be able to get 8 on there. And we're gonna put them on our pan. And then we're gonna bake them at 350 degrees. So just take some milk, your heavy cream, and just dab a little bit, getting all that flour mark off. And then what you're gonna do is just take some sugar and sprinkle that on there. And not only will it take away those flour marks, but it will give it a nice glisten when it bakes. Now it's time to drizzle on our glaze. Just go back and forth with either a whisk or a fork. Well, thanks for joining me today, and I cannot wait to hear about how amazing your pumpkin scones turned out and how much you wowed your friends and family. So enjoy this recipe, and we will see you next time.